4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the Big1050.com. The roundtable is back, first one of the new year. So new coach, new coaching staff, and a roster retention effort that has, under the circumstances, been going really, really well. I don't think I'm overstating it when I say, boy, you've landed the majority of your top guys. You couldn't have expected for them to do a lot better than they have done thus far. Joining me to reflect and to project based on this new regime being here, MGoBlog Roundtable crew. Starting off first with Brian Cook. Brian, good morning. How are you?
I'm well.
Seth Fisher. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Did you notice it's all Brian's guys, but he has to do the offense, and all of his guys are coming back, and I'm losing Sullivan, my favorite dude to chart. It's just not fair.
Yeah,
they're not thinking of me here.
That's a tough one. You aren't gonna be able to keep them all, though. That's just the nature of the beast in this day and age. From a fatigued Craig Ross, who is expressing the sentiment that a lot of fans are expressing right now with just the whole portal process, but that's the age that we're in. Craig Ross, good morning. How are you?
Well, maybe I'm just so old that anything fatigues me. But I'm happy about the Whittingham hire. I mean, I got one problem with it, and that's his age, because when I was graduating from law school, Whittingham was starting first grade. Guy's just too young to be the head coach here. But other than that, it's all good.
Yeah, it is. It is going to be very familiar, the mentality that Michigan takes the field with, plays with the demeanor of the football here, but demeanor with maybe some more flexibility as far as offensive approach. But let's just start off first with try to broad brush it. Overall impressions and what you're most excited about from the hire, starting with you, Brian Cook.
Adults in the room.
Oh, wow.
That's what I'm excited about. Like, you have Whittingham hit the ground running with established college coordinators, for the most part established position coaches, particularly Jim Harding. Gennaro Guilford is also a very good hire, according to every BYU fan, and that's always a good sign. They filled out their quote unquote analysts. They're really just, on-field coaches who don't go on the road to recruit, with, Hagens, and, they got a safeties coach who had been a defensive coordinator.
Detmer.
Detmer, they've filled out a staff that really looks like they're all good ideas, and they're all established good ideas. And that's something we never had under Sharon Moore, because he hired Kirk Campbell as his offensive coordinator, he hired J.B. Brown as his special teams coordinator. You got a lot of very young, new coaches, and that wasn't necessarily the case for all of them. Like Lamar Morgan was a DC, but overall, this staff seems much more clearly good. And it's, they've got a couple guys who are young, and Alex Whittingham and Micah Simon, who are up and comers, and that's fine. Your J-Boz, you get your young, like, thirsty recruiter types, and that's good. But like your coordinators, your offensive line coach, you had a really good defensive ends coach. You kept Espo. Like, it just feels like this staff is now very clearly one of the top staffs in the Big Ten.
Seth Fisher.
Yeah, Brian covered pretty much most of it. It's we had, even with Jim Harbaugh, things were always a little bit hectic and frantic and a little sloppy, and like, oh, God, I'm a little frustrated to do this. And the main thing about Whittingham is this guy spent over 20 years coaching in one place and had no scandals. None. Not even a whiff. And I mean, think about how hard that is to do. Think of how
That's
hard.
That's not quite true, because the wife of the defensive backs coach went to prison for fraud, despite being on Real Housewives. And you can't do fraud and be on Real Housewives, because fraud is a job.
I don't put that on the head coach, because the one thing you're not allowed to do is talk to a man about his wife. So
all right, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, he probably looked at that and said, "Oh, this guy's going to be divorced in 4 years, and then I'll have him for good." So I'm going to put it on. He put him on the recruiting trail. But yeah, that's That's really important. This program needed stability, and they need to be able to show these players because half of the game is just getting whoever you can get in the portal and who you can get to stay on your team, and they had to show stability in a week, and that was what's really incredible is that they put together a staff that could demonstrate very quickly to everybody that look, we're okay, we've got this, and given we'd lost a coach in the middle of December in the way that we did, I think that's a coup to be able to pull a team together and look like a program that is not, a laughing stock. We're not in the news.
Mm-hmm. Craig Ross?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys said it all. I mean, adults is the relevant word. I mean, even under Harbaugh, as good a coach as Jim Harbaugh is, and he obviously is, it always felt like running a program really wasn't his thing, or at least that was my feeling, and it always kind of felt a little bit flaky, and that never changed through the Sharon period. And this just feels to me more stable, more steady, more like they really know what they're doing. I'm not saying they'll be better coaches than what Harbaugh brought us, but it just feels more adult. And so in that respect, I completely agree. And it seems like, I mean, you never know, but it seems like they put together a really fine coaching staff with a good blend of older experienced guys and younger guys who have the energy to recruit. So I'm all in for it at this point. I think what they've done is quite good.
Yeah, I think that his long-term success and being able to reasonably project that it's going to translate based on how they went from Mountain West to Pac-12 and continue to compete at a high level, and taking some of those elements, most of those elements, and bringing them here, and it being so similar to the mentality that was already in place. Like you try to gauge, how is this transition, a transition of this magnitude in terms of staff? How easily is it going to translate to you kind of picking up where you left off? And by that, I mean, I was expecting next year to be a year where they could really get back to legit playoff contention. I'm feeling like how this transition has gone is going to allow them to do so far. And I don't want to give people false insecurity, like everyone still is locked in, but if it goes like I think it's going to go, because I think things look good with a few guys that they have left still in question. Boy, I don't know that you could have expected anything more from this coaching staff, and you compare it to the other significant transition where you bring in like a 80%. I think the only guy that Rich kept was Freddie Jack, who's being retained, by the way.
Who's somehow still alive.
That doesn't
Yeah,
need
yeah,
to be
the
sold.
reception.
Like, you don't need to tell me that.
Yeah, the reception is so different, obviously, and for circumstances that we know about, and the style. While there are going to be some more innovation in terms of the offense and the use of the quarterback and the passing game, the mentality, the demeanor, I think is more comfortable for a lot of people too. And I think that is going to make this transition really hit the ground running in ways that maybe the transition now 20 or almost 20 years ago wasn't really allowed to be. It wasn't allowed to hit the ground running like I think this one will, Brian Cook.
Well, it was a completely different era too. Like, there's no portal back then. Recruiting was different. It was comparing then and now is almost beside the point. And I know a lot of people have been frustrated with Michigan's attempts to acquire people out of the portal. But you got to realize, when the portal opens and Indiana has 13 guys on campus in the first week, that's not something that happened that day. And when Indiana was setting up all these portal visits, Michigan didn't have a head coach. Or if they did have a head coach, he wasn't focused on getting guys out of the portal. So they're really playing from behind. And so roster retention has been very good. I mean, they lost Sullivan, they got Barry back, they got Guarnero back, they got Sprague back, they got most of the guys back who you really want to get back. That looks like they're going to get Marsh back, Underwood's back. Like, that's much more important than trying to figure out if you can get some dude who you don't even really know. So Michigan is playing from behind. They have seemingly locked down most of the roster that they want to keep. And at this point, I think you're going to start seeing Michigan look to acquire some guys, particularly from Utah. Like, John Henry Daly is supposed to be on campus either yesterday or today. And, they picked up a punter who's got weird stats. like his hang time is not. He's an Aussie, so that's good. His hang time's not very good, but they were 5th in FEI punt efficiency this year, despite being like 43rd in net punting. I don't understand how all the numbers are working out with this guy, but they got a punter. So they're working on filling the holes that they now see. And it's just, be patient. The roster isn't going to be exactly what you wanted it to be, but under the circumstances, I think that they're doing a really good job.
Yeah, I guess the most direct comparison to me is you're able to lock your quarterback up, and it just the domino effect of that.
Yeah,
is almost immeasurable. And Rich was never even able to meet with Ryan Mallett, whereas you come in, and it could have easily been the same way with Bryce. I mean, there were questions about him, about what the fit was going to be off the rip. They were like, hey, really, really good coach, really, really good resume. I wonder about the fit for Bryce. But they were receptive to hearing what he had to say. It wasn't just immediately we're going to go and just get ready to hit the portal and start exploring. Understanding, let's sit down and talk to Coach Whittingham, hear from his would-be, or hear about his would-be OC, and really dig into how he could fit into this roster so we can have an effect on the rest of the roster as well. Because, you get the quarterback, a lot of other things fall into place there, Seth.
I mean, there is a direct comparison in Michigan history to Whittingham, and that's Fritz Chrysler. And this is going back ways to to Craig years, man. But it was a sea change after Yost. I don't know if I can get into the whole history here, but it was the program. Yeah, we got into a big mess, especially under the young guys, and then it was a sea change.
Can we stay in this millennium, guys?
No, but listen, this is we're talking program level, which is still just as relevant today. And it was super important for him to lock down Harmon, and then once he did, the rest of the team came to the portal opened because of World War II, and he actually changed Michigan into something new. And that's where I'm trying to go with this. Is like, have your mind open now, because we've been Harbaugh was like the end of the Bo cycle, and I think this puts a hard end on that. Right? We tried to do Rich Rod, we went back to Hoke, like we did this whole thing trying to be the same program we've been since 1969. I think this is the start, and it's a good time to start being a new program, because it's a new time in NCAA football. And my question is, what does Whittingham do next? What does he see? How does he use the portal in the future? How does he use analytics in the future? How do they find ways to take advantage of Michigan's place in this new world? And that's kind of the question I have going forward.
Yeah.
There's a lot of jibber jabber about the path that Michigan should take or is taking. And a part of that is, well, Michigan is just going to recruit guys, young guys, and then try and keep them in the program. And then the portal will be a secondary element for them, versus, say, Indiana, who say, we're not going to bother with bringing young guys in. We'll just look at tape from to the extent we can at guys from other places, and then we'll bring them in through the portal. And so that those are two, I think, somewhat different models. But in this year, you can't tell what Michigan's model is because, as Brian points out, the portal, and as Biff pointed out in his press conference, one of his press conferences, someone asked him about the portal. Biff said, that portal's been open for a long time. It doesn't open on January 2nd. It opened months ago or weeks ago. And and that's why I think, in fact, Indiana had 13 guys on campus when we're still looking for a coach. So, I mean, my guess is Michigan will steer a kind of middle path. They'll focus on the young guys and the people who are here and trying to keep them, and still be active in the portal. But this year, that's going to be just less likely because of the coaching change.
All right, so the models are so different, and it'll be interesting to see if Indiana really evolves. They don't spend in recruiting the way that Michigan does. Like, recruiting top level guys costs top dollar,
Right.
and that just hasn't been Indiana. So it allows them to direct a good portion of their resources to the portal, and Indiana has resources now. Who would have thunk it, right? But they have resources for football, and they can be super aggressive in the portal with those resources. Now that they are one of the top teams in college football, are there going to be recruiting ramifications? I guess ramifications might be because it's a benefit. Is there going to be a recruiting benefit from that as a result? And then now all of that money that you had in the first couple of cycles to throw at the portal, are you going to have to kind of budget that better and say, we got to spend more in recruiting like Michigan does? There are a few considerations. Who can you realistically get out of the portal and get through admissions? But then there's the money that you spend in recruiting that you can't spend in the portal. And if you a case in point, people are asking about Jimmy Rolder I talked about this on the Recruiting Insider podcast. Jimmy Rolder had a direct effect on linebacker recruiting. I mean, if your linebacker valuation is lower than your other position groups already, and then you take money away from what you had allocated for linebackers because, hey, we got to close out Nada Wusu Botang in one class and maybe take away from what we thought we were going to have. And then in the portal cycle, it looks like Colorado's about to get Jimmy Rolder. And boy, we got to come in and really get aggressive there. That money has to come from somewhere. Well, it comes from the recruiting kitty. And now Michigan is at the lower end of every single sort of NIL approach with all the top linebackers that come through, and it affects your recruiting that way. Well, Indiana, they haven't had to live that life. Michigan has, and I think, it'll be interesting to see if they're able to navigate it quite as well moving forward. But let's talk now about how you think this offense is going to look, how you think this defense is going to look. Jason Beck, Jay Hill, starting with you. Let's go in reverse order. Craig Ross.
Well, I mean, I think Whittingham wants to pound the rock. I think, I'm not saying we're not going to pass the ball at all, but I'm not sure it's going to look a whole lot different than what it looked like under Harbaugh or Lloyd or anyone else. They're going to want to run the ball. And it looks like to me that Michigan has the assets to do that, certainly next year. I mean, they're should be loaded on the offensive line. Malachi Lee makes that even more so, I believe. And they've got people they can move inside to guard. That isn't a problem. They've got a center, it appears. And so, and they've got at least two spectacularly good running backs for sure. And I don't know what Haynes' situation is yet. Do you know, Sam? You have any info on Haynes?
Yeah, so I remember the initial number I heard was there's just no way. There's just no way Michigan's going to be able to
deal
afford
with
that.
Yeah.
Might it be different now? That to me would be the question. Is the number more manageable to get him back?
Well, I know Jordan Marshall's coming back. It sounds like he's a he's an NFL quality running back, and so is Hyder. And in my opinion, he's probably ready to go now. So they've got two really good running backs at least in the program. I think Kuzdal left, and you can hardly blame him because he was pretty good for a guy who was sitting third on the depth chart. But so they've got running backs. The only question you'd have on this team is, do they need another wide receiver? Yes.
Yes.
I mean, from somewhere,
Right.
and maybe some help at tight end. But compared to every other school in the world, offense looks, pretty good. And and I don't see there's any reason to believe it's going to look a whole lot different. There may be a little less reliance on tight ends than there was under Harbaugh, but other than that, it looks like business as usual, and it should be a good usual, at least on the offense.
It's funny to hear Utah fans talk about, well, good luck, JJ Buchanan. If you go to Utah, all you're going to do is go there and block. I'm like, what Michigan football have they watched?
Yeah.
Michigan
Yeah.
absolutely throws.
What Utah football have they been watching?
Yeah.
Like, he caught like 25 balls as a true freshman for that head coach. Also, I think it's interesting that he's not a tight end. He's a wide receiver. Like, you watch him play, that's not a tight end. And should Michigan make him a tight end? No. They don't need tight ends. They need wide receivers. So, I mean, I would be after him real hard, and I'd be like, you get to be 215 pounds, buddy. That's all we need.
Yeah. One thing that people assume when they look at, because the numbers that are out there are the numbers that are available tell you who's on the field. They don't tell you how they're aligned all the time. And one thing I noticed different about Utah once they got Beck was they spread those tight ends out a lot. They run a lot of 12 personnel, so they like to have multiple tight ends on the field. But like Brian said, they're using them as wide receivers, and they do that. I think if you look, I think that he might be flexed out more often than he's in line.
Well,
And
he's
that's
205-pound true freshman. Like, he's not tight
yeah,
end. Like,
yeah.
You can funchess him, I guess, and like try to make him a tight end, but why would you do that? Like, he's not. That's not what Michigan needs. They have plenty of tight ends.
I think that I would not fall into a single box. I would say use them the way that Michigan used Loveland, right? Like, you don't have to. I don't care what you call that, but you're talking about a giant man in the slot that just creates problems for anybody who wants to play them.
He had 5 inline snaps last year.
Yeah.
So he's a wide receiver.
Yeah. So you can. That's the point, though. I think either way you're saying is, or he's a giant man that you can put out you can flex him out and put him in space, and that's very hard for players who are smaller than him.
He's 6'3". Like, just let him be a wide receiver. Like, there's no need.
6'3"?
Yeah, he's 6'3". He's not 6'5". He's not 6'6". He's 6'3". So he's a wide receiver. He's a big wide receiver, but there's no reason to make him anything else.
Look at that. They've embellished this. I didn't realize his height was embellished in some of the reports. But yeah,
I thought he was 6'5".
Either way, I heard very early it was clear to me that he was going to be jumping in the portal and that Michigan was going to be at the top of his list. So he is going to be, or is, a definite target. The question is, does that end your pursuits? I don't think it does. You also have like Quincy Porter's name is floated back up. We'll see what they do there. So there are going to be some intriguing days as we get into the weekend, as far as the portal is concerned, to see what direction they go as far as receivers are concerned. That's going to be a big one for me. But Beck and Hill, I guess we can come back around on Hill, but I at least want to get your Beck take, Brian, before we get to a break.
Well, he's a guy who had Devin Dampier at New Mexico, and Dampier was not much of a thrower, and for him to progress the way he did in his year at Utah, I think was really encouraging. Also, I mean, that's a guy who had 1,100 rushing yards when he was in New Mexico. So I don't think we're going to see the same sort of hesitancy that we saw from Sherrod Moore with running a quarterback, especially because Whittingham, that if you look in his career, like all of his guys rush for 600-700 yards. So I'm encouraged by that. Another funny thing that the Utah people are doing is like, get ready to learn QB power. And like,
They
that's
run
gonna
QB
that's gonna
power.
make us upset. Like, well, no, they don't. I mean,
Well, no, we don't. They do.
I
They were
know,
running a
but
ton against UCLA.
yes,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you have to run the ball, and like, yes, good, wonderful. And then they're like, oh, are you prepared for a program that doesn't have a lot of media access? All right.
Yeah, that's what the Utah guys are trying to say. Oh man, dude.
Oh no. How are we gonna adapt to this?
I thought it was a little bit of sour grapes
Yeah,
being played there. But I'm so glad he's going. Give me a break. Until he starts getting players for the program. Now he's like the enemy of the state, literally in Utah. So
it looks like they got that Pitt kicker.
yeah. So okay, that just came across.
That just came across.
All right, we need to get to a break. We'll update you on that on the other side and get into the defense as well. Here on the Michigan Insider MGoBlog Roundtable here on the Big 1050 WTK online at thebig1050.com.
Clear on the radio.
So
Is the Pitt kicker an Australian guy? Is that the one you were talking about?
his name's he's from Florida apparently.
The punter is Australian. He's
Punter's
the,
Aussie. You don't need Aussie kickers. You need Aussie punters because they come out of the womb like running around doing
Kicking.
rugby kicks. Yeah.
Unless we start doing drop kicks, maybe Aussies can do that.
So like Michigan's portal class is currently 2 specialists and a long snapper. So Kerry Coombs getting it done.
That's right. And
What is going on here? Why are we starting the portal with? I guess Kerry Coombs was the one person in position
Right.
a couple weeks ago.
right.
well, the special teams was a disaster, so you might as well fix it.
They were okay in the bowl game though. Or I mean, that's the first time all year
Yep.
when we had pretty good
First time they had a real special teams coach too.
yeah. So Sam, the Mallet thing, if Rich said that he couldn't talk to Mallet, that's nonsense as an aside. Because Lloyd tried to broker conversations with Rich and Steve Mallet, his dad, and to try and talk about running a passing spread, and Rich was not in for it at all. And Steve Mallet was not in for his kid being a read option quarterback at 6'6" or whatever he was. And so maybe that's Rich's story that, he couldn't talk to Mallet, but I don't think it's a reality. So
I think the people who knew Ryan said that Arkansas was going to give him a ton of money and he was going to be gone either way. So
that's
Do we need to relitigate this?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But
Is there any stuff from the 1880s we need to cover today, guys?
well, I'm all right with the 1880s.
don't shoot it.
There's lots of interesting stuff from the 1880s.
Wrong crowd to put that one out there, Brian.
Yeah. Yeah. Because Seth and I can talk the 1880s.
I'm aware, but there's a lot of stuff going on like right now that we could be talking about instead of Ryan Mallet.
Right. Well, I just
No,
came
but
up.
Yeah, I
we
brought
don't
up
need to talk about recruiting battles about guys who are already retired from the NFL. We can
Not
talk about
even.
recruiting battles that are happening like right now.
Yeah.
It's weird that how many photos we have of our new coaches when they were players. Like we're going through like these guys, we're hiring these guys, and I'm like, oh look, yeah, we played BYU in 2015. I bet we have a couple of these guys, or we have some of the guys from the Utah games in was it 2008 and 2014, and when else did we play Utah? 15, yeah.
6, 7, 3. Yeah, they did a great job. This offensive line that they were able to keep it together. Yes, and Brian Mallett for sure was a great dude. He was a great dude.
He was. He had some issues on. Well, I won't get into those, but
Wait, Ryan Mallett was a great dude.
At least to me, he was.
yeah,
I wasn't great to Mario Manningham.
there were some things off the air things.
But as we look at the we're gonna get into the Jay Hill side of things. Man, you gotta be excited by the pieces that he's put together. We'll dive into this on the other side. That defensive line contingent, I think, is going to be elite on and off the field. Gennaro was, the interesting Michigan connection there as he played in high school with Charles Drake and Courtney. He was there.
Oh, really?
Corner on that squad. Yeah.
Wow.
So he has a kind of a loose Michigan connection there. That he is coming in with some knowledge of.
Back in about 30 seconds.
Of the Maize Blue.
Except Courtney's at Alabama, and we know Drake, passed away.
Yeah.
But yeah,
yeah. But he has some. He's able to come in and kind of be able to hit the ground running from the standpoint of having some institutional knowledge, not totally green, and a guy from a coaching and recruiting standpoint. He say is
stand by, guys, coming back.
He's going to adapt well. Here we go.
Back on radio in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the big1050.com. Sam Webb, Mr. Ira Weintraub on the other side as we get back to it. Want to let those of you who are in a market for a new vehicle know you should get on board with Brighton Ford. Go to BrightonFord.com, call 1-800-NEW-FORD, or make it out to the lot at 8240 West Grand River Avenue in Brighton, Michigan. When you do, you can take advantage of the great deals like the one on the 2025 Bronco Sport Big Bend, $241 a month with $3,500 down, or $325 a month with $500 down. Or how about that great SUV, the 2026 Ford Explorer Active, $330 a month with $3,500 down, or $418 a month with $500 down. And last but not least, that award-winning pickup, still some left on the lot, the 2025 Ford F-150 XLT, $252 a month, $3,500 down, and $340 a month with $500 down. For those and other great deals, get on board with Brighton Ford. Go to BrightonFord.com, call 1-800-NEW-FORD, or make it out to the lot at 8240 West Grand River Avenue in Brighton, Michigan. Get on board with Brighton Ford. All right, let's get to the defensive side of the ball. Jay Hill, there was a massive effort at BYU, which has resources, by the way, to try to keep Jay Hill. He's like, nah, the stage is too big. The opportunity is too great. Brian Cook to leave, or to stay here at BYU. I got to go ahead and get on the next thing, smoking over to Ann Arbor. And here Michigan is with the new defensive coordinator. What do you think of Jay Hill?
Well, first of all, he made Weber State into an FCS powerhouse when he was the head coach there. And they were not very good before he got there, and they're not very good after he left. So I think that's a really good, just overall thing to have as a coordinator, as a guy who clearly is able to organize an entire program. He arrives at BYU. I think they're in the hundreds in SP plus, and he gets them into the 90s in year one. Year two, they're in the 20s, and they're in the 20s again this year. So that's a heck of a build in a relatively short period of time. Obviously, a guy who Whittingham knows very well. He was at Utah for over a decade before he went to Weber State. So in terms of familiarity, like knowing what Whittingham wants to do, and also being a guy who's clearly very capable outside of like the Whittingham bubble, maybe not the Utah bubble, but the Whittingham bubble. Like obviously a guy who has the bona fides, knows where the hashes are, always a positive. Knows the clock rules, always positive. Mm-hmm. So I feel like he's going to hit the ground running. I don't know exactly what his defensive line is going to look like next year, which is the main concern. Looks like the secondary will be fine. And, the front seven is a little bit of a question. We'll see what happens after the portal. But in terms of like, will this guy call defense that makes sense? Yes. Will this guy coach his guys so that they are playing the defenses that make sense in the correct way? Yes. That's good. I like it.
Seth?
Yeah, if Don Brown had been younger and was able to kind of evolve his defense, that's kind of the design of the defense. Notre Dame runs the same thing nowadays. people are all going to immediately say, "Oh no, what are you going to do if when they face Ohio State?" And the answer is, well, Ohio State seems to be losing all those wide receivers. But it runs out of a base, and they do a lot of they like a lot of 5-man fronts. They do a lot of the stuff that Illinois was doing, Ryan Walters was doing. So it's going to look different than it's not the Ravens defense. They do change up coverages more than a lot of other teams that run something in this kind of field, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how much they change and what their game plan for Ohio State is. I think their game plan for every other game is going to be, do their thing. They have a base. And like Brian said, the defensive line is going to matter a lot, because if you can get penetration with that system, then you're golden. And if you can't, then your secondary really has to last a long time out there. So I think it's a system speaking. I think Jay Hill's got good bona fides. I like the fact that we have a defensive coordinator who's my age finally. But I'm anxious to see what happens against Ohio State.
Yeah, his history is incredibly positive. There's no doubt there. I just wonder about next year. I agree that the secondary should be pretty good. The back 4 or 5, Michigan should have enough there so that they've got something plausible on the defense. I just don't know what the front's going to look like. I mean, you've got Pierce, maybe linebackers, maybe you have Rolder, you don't have Sullivan, then you've got really young guys, and I don't know what the rest of the defensive line even begins to look like right now. So I think he's got a tall order, and if Hill can come in next year and the defense can be reasonable, I don't expect it to be great, then I believe the offense should be good enough so Michigan can win some games. But I fear that there'll be a lot of grousing about defense next year, and that'll have nothing to do with Hill. It'll have everything to do with personnel. And at least that's how I see it right now. But I say, let's give the guy some rope, because he has a really nice history. And I think if we stay with him, he'll do something with our defense over the midterm.
Yeah, initial impressions that you hear from some of the players who have started watching film on the defense, talking a little bit to the coaches, some of the back end guys, like, man, it feels like it'll be simpler. I don't know if that's just wrong because they haven't actually been in it yet, but they feel like, man, we'll be able to play faster in this defense, than they were able to play at times in the other. And that might just be, hey, you're excited about something new. I don't know. But definitely some excitement there. The question, to Craig's point, will be, how much of that will they be able to maintain? They get Zeke back, things looking good with, on the Jair front. Can you keep or get back that young talent base that you started to really build up? Is kind of the question to me, especially those guys who can play corner, because they say one of the things that Jay Hill says that we aren't gonna, how we play our nickel is different. We're gonna go to more of a corner look at nickel than what Michigan has had in the past, where they've been like bigger safety hybrid kind of guy at times, in like with the TJ Metcalf. Do you have enough guys right now that are corner types, legit corner types, to really be able to roll in a really good rotation at this point? Remains to be seen how much of that they keep, considering what they've kept elsewhere. Because the exercise that we've been doing is, you paid big coin to keep a lot of the guys that you've kept thus far. How much money is left to give the guys that you still have to get locked up? That is going to be the measure here over the next week or so, as we look to see how they close out the portal. So that's where I'm keeping my eyes. Guys like Shamari Earls, your Jaden Sanders, those kinds of guys.
Yeah, unfortunately, 2 of the guys that I thought really fit what they with the defense that they were running at BYU is Cole Sullivan and Jordan Young. Sullivan, because they love to have that like really tall, agile, can turn him into a defensive end, and so Chase Taylor might have to step up and be that, but they really could have used a Cole Sullivan. Maybe they can do that with Rolder, but he's not really the same player. And then Jordan Young is that cornerback-ish nickel who can play safety. Like, I was surprised that he wasn't somebody they looked at the film and go, oh, that's someone we want to hold on to. Now his film as a freshman was very freshman. He was young and he was over small, but I thought he projected to be really good, and I don't know what's going on with him.
I don't think it's I don't think it's a matter of them not wanting him. I just, you're talking about a guy who came. Remember, he was committed to Clemson.
Yeah.
He flipped because he had a great relationship with Lamar Morgan. Same thing with Shamari Earls, and so now you get into waging a financial war in addition to trying to grow a relationship really, really quickly. It's just, I don't think it's for lack of effort or interest on Michigan's part. I just think, circumstances are what they are, and you just aren't going to be able to keep every guy from exploring his options.
Oh, no, of course not. I just think that I'm just saying in the general sphere, like, if the BYU coaches or look at what Michigan's got and they go, oh, they got this Jordan Young guy. He might have been an early phone call. You might be able to do the same thing with Jair Hill. You might move him to nickel if you got Jaden Sanders outside.
Yeah, and Shamari, for sure. I just, you look around at the portal options. There will be better or more experienced guys, more proven guys. There are in the portal than Shamari Earls. There aren't better athletes. And I just, boy, you talk about a guy that you feel like could really be a dude if a coach can. He has to stay healthy, but get him on the field and get it out of him. This is that guy for me, because that's the biggest issue with Michigan second. I mean, they just didn't have a lot of guys with a lot of foot speed on that back end. You couldn't really play a lot of man because they aren't going to be able to turn and run with a lot of guys. And so I was hoping that they'd be able to go into the portal and augment what they already had. And now that is secondary to trying to preserve what you already have in the secondary, at least to me. So
they need to edge rush. That's the big thing.
Yeah, that too. And so, but overall, exciting this contingent that he's put together on that end. So what do you think will be the biggest adjustment for this crew as they make the transition from Utah/BYU to Michigan, Brian Cook?
Can you be more specific?
So when this question was asked of Kyle Whittingham, he said football is football. Yeah, I don't think we're going to have a major adjustment because we've been playing in the Pac-12 playing against Big Ten teams anyway. Yeah. I think we're going to hit the ground running. Do you think there's going to be anything that is a hill to climb for them making the transition from Utah? I'll give you, for instance, for me, I think the biggest adjustment is going to be getting outside of the recruiting bubble that they've had in Utah and expanding it to a model that allows you to recruit nationally. You won't have as many Michigan guys. Be interesting to see if they can get as many Polynesian players in as well. But now you have a national recruiting base to draw from, and guys having to go to those areas to get players. So that to me would be the biggest adjustment that I see them needing to make.
Yeah, I mean, like on field, I don't think there's going to be much of an adjustment, especially because, like, this is a smash guy, like, and Michigan is well set up to do the kinds of things that he wants to do, particularly on offense. I don't like it. It's a pretty clean fit. But yeah, I think the recruiting is, to be clear, they don't have to change the recruiting on the offense and defensive lines at all. Like, just do what you're doing.
Right. Esposito, still get the guys. Yeah.
Like, we don't need to change that at all. We're good. But yeah, I think there's a little bit of it's going to be a little bit of a lift for them to kind of move from a very particular, I would say, a narrow but a very enthusiastic base of recruits to a wider and perhaps less enthusiastic base, because those guys from the Mountain West who go to Utah, who go to BYU, and Samoans, BYU and Utah still exist, and they're still going to be recruiting the heck out of those guys. So Michigan's not going to be able to just swoop in and get everyone they want. So yeah, I do think that that's going to be something that's kind of up in the air. But they have Alford, they have Espo, they have Kerry Coombs. These guys, particularly Coombs, he was recruiting at Ohio State for over a decade, so they can rely on him to like kind of know that game. And same with Alford. Alford was recruiting at Ohio State for a long time, so they have guys that will be able to like, expand what they want to do. I'm not super concerned about that. I mean, I do kind of think that there's some possibility Michigan's overall recruiting rankings might drop a little bit, but I just think that's because they're going to be getting guys from Mountain West areas that are not well scouted. And, a lot of the things that you don't see on a recruiting profile, like this guy doesn't drink. He's very dedicated. And so I think there's a reason that BYU and Utah tend to outperform their recruiting rankings. And I think you might have better players coming through that aren't as highly ranked. I'm not super concerned about anything in terms of fit or readiness, because as I said earlier, almost all these guys have very good track records and long track records as college coaches, from Guilford to Freddie Whittingham to Harding. Like, it's really just Alex Whittingham and Micah Simon who aren't like obviously very top end position coaches. So that's more important to me than being able to get a recruit out of Florida, which they're going to do. Like, it's like people are going to be interested in Michigan. And, these days, sometimes the money is going to talk, right? So the ability to like snake oil some guy away from a local school is not necessarily so much of a priority these days, because now they can get paid. And if you have a guy who's a priority, you can be like, we value this much, and he's going to listen to that. There's an Athletic article where there is a Big Ten coach who's like, it's not a coincidence that as soon as everybody could start paying people, that this SEC fell off, right? So like, I kind of feel like that is less of a concern than it would have been 5 years ago, because money talks.
Yeah, I don't see that there's challenges beyond what they've faced already for this staff in terms of coaching football. I mean, I don't see the issue there, and I'm not sure I see the issues on recruiting. In the end, to me, it isn't so much about recruiting ratings, as I've said forever, but it's about, do you get guys that can come in and play, which does not necessarily connect to the ratings that the individual recruit has. And that's a lot about talent evaluation, who fits with your team, who fits with your staff, and can we afford them? I guess that's the new, metric. So I'm not concerned about this staff coming in. I see no reason why they shouldn't be successful.
I think the biggest difference that they're going to find is they've never seen a basketball team this good, and neither have I. So I'm sorry we didn't get to talk about basketball and hockey a little bit this week, but I'm sure we will. I wanted to point out there was a video call by Basket Under Review that I think people should take a look at, which talks about they ask coaches, what would you do if you had to play Michigan? It was a very interesting look at kind of how Michigan's playing this year, how they use their bigs in transition and how they space the floor and whatnot. And I thought it was really cool. Glad we escaped Penn State and learned some things there. And I wanted to finish a little basketball talk, because those guys deserve all the talk.
Yeah, well,
good stuff. Yeah, I would be interested to see on Michigan's football side of things who they wind up putting on the road. Like, I would put Hagens on the road. I mean, especially considering how much they recruit Virginia now. I figure out a way to get them on the road. So it'll be interesting to see how much moving around they do in terms of who's on the road and when.
Because his roots are in Virginia, is that right? Or he has some Virginia?
He's from Hampton. Yeah. Okay. Well, we got to get out of here. We'll get to basketball tomorrow. I'll try to get Timmy Mack on for another Michigan Basketball Insider, so be on the lookout for that. We got to get out of here, though. We'll see you on the next edition of the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA online.